Hare Krishna. Let us understand Bhagavad Gita chapter by chapter, section by section. To begin with, let us offer our prayers to our spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and to the Supreme Lord. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today, let us understand the summary study of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita entitled Transcendental Knowledge. In this chapter, there are 5 sections. So today we will be understanding the first section, which is from Shloka number 1 to Shloka number 8. This section is entitled Krishna re-establishes the chain of disciplic succession. So let us understand this section. So Lord Krishna begins explaining to Arjuna about how he thought this transcendental knowledge long ago. So Krishna says, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manurikshvakave Pravid. The Blessed Lord said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So Krishna is telling that he explained the science of yoga long ago to the sun god Vivasvan. In every planet there is a presiding deity who manages the affairs of that planet. In sun planet there is the king of sun planet whose name is Vivasvan. So Krishna says to Arjuna that he instructed the science of yoga to Vivasvan long ago. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, in this millennium, the sun god is known as Vivasvan, the king of sun, who is the origin of all planets within the solar system. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Yachakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rashesha Teja Yasyagnyaya Brahmati Sambrata Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajan. Lord Brahma says, let me worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is the original person and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, he is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and travels in its orbit in obedience to his order. So the sun planet, which is the king of all planets, it is performing its duty under the obedience of the Supreme Lord, Krishna Govinda. So, that king, the king of sun planet Vivasvan, was instructed by Lord Krishna himself. So, it is explained in the Mahabharata Shanti Parva. It is said, Treta yugadau cha tato vivasvan manave dadau manushya loka vrityartham sutaye ikshvakave dadau ikshvakuna cha kathito vyapya lokan avasthita. That means, in the beginning of the Treta Yuga, this science of the relationship with the Supreme was delivered by Vivasvan to Manu. Manu, being the father of mankind, gave it to his son Maharaja Ikshvaku, the king of this earth planet and forefather of the Raghu dynasty in which Lord Ramachandra appeared. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita existed in the human society from the time of Maharaja Ikshvaku. So Prabhupada further gives some details of how many years ago Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. At the present moment, we have just passed through 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga, which lasts 4,32,000 years. Before this, there was Dwapara Yuga, that is 8 lakh years. And before that, there was Treta Yuga, which was 12 lakh years. And then, thus, some 2,005,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad Gita to his disciple and son, Maharaja Ikshvaku, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last some 305,300,000 years, of which 120,400,000 have passed. Accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by the Lord to his disciple, the sun god Vivasvan, a rough estimate is that the Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago, and in human society it has been extant for 2 million years. It was re-spoken by Lord Krishna again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. This is the rough estimate of the history of the Gita according to the Gita itself and according to the version of the speaker, Lord Shri Krishna. So it was spoken to the sun god Vivasvan because he is also a Kshatriya and is the father of all Kshatriyas who are descendants of sun god or the Surya Vamsha Kshatriyas. Because Bhagavad Gita is as good as the Vedas being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this knowledge is apaurusheya, superhuman. Since Vedic instructions are accepted as they are without human interpretation, the Gita must be therefore accepted without mundane interpretation. The mundane wranglers may speculate on the Gita in their own ways, but that is not Bhagavad Gita as it is. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita has to be accepted as it is from the disciplic succession, and it is described herein that the Lord spoke to the sun god spoke it to his son Manu, and Manu spoke to his son Ikshvaku. So this is the rough estimate of the history of Bhagavad Gita. It is extant in human society at least 2 million years ago. So this is a history. So Krishna further explains, Eva parampara prapta mimam rajarshayo viduhu sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. Krishna says, this supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appeared to be lost. So Krishna had spoken Bhagavad Gita in the beginning of Treta Yuga to sun god Vivasvan, and sun god Vivasvan spoke it to his son Manu. Manu spoke it to Ikshvaku, who is the father of the Raghu dynasty. In this way, the science of Bhagavad Gita was disseminated in the disciplic succession through the Raja Rishi Parampara. But when Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago in Dwapara Yuga, he found that that science which he had taught long ago was broken. That knowledge was destroyed. So he had to re-establish, re-speak and that science of yoga. So that's what Krishna is telling here. that evam parampara praptam evam rajarshayo viduhu sakalene amata yogo nashta tarata. That yoga was nashtaha. That means that yoga was scattered. It was broken. That science was lost. So Krishna had to re-establish. So to re-establish that science, Krishna says, Sayevayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hyetad uttamam. Krishna says that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Therefore, you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So here Krishna is telling that supreme yoga, that ancient yoga which he had spoken to Sun God Vivaswan, he is again re-speaking to Arjuna because Arjuna was qualified to receive this yoga. So for any subject, one has to be qualified. To become a doctor, one has to be qualified. To become an engineer, one has to be qualified. Not that anyone and everyone gets admitted to engineering college. Not that anyone and everyone gets admitted to medical college. There is a entrance exam. So to detect the pre-qualification needed to understand that subject. To enter into military, there are so many tests and physical tests and physical fitness, medical fitness, and they have this running and so many things before they're selected into the army. So in that same way, to understand the science of God, there is preliminary qualification needed, and Arjuna had that qualification. What is the preliminary qualification needed? Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. Arjuna was a devotee of Krishna and he was a friend of Krishna. So he was qualified to receive this science because this science is the science of relationship with the Supreme Lord. Unless one loves the Supreme Lord, one cannot begin to understand this science. So that is the basic qualification needed. If we have to understand Bhagavad Gita, we have to be devotee of Krishna and then we have to believe whatever Krishna has said as true. Unless we have this preliminary qualification, we cannot read Bhagavad Gita and understand on our own. It's impossible. So Arjuna was a devotee of Krishna. He was a friend of Krishna. So Krishna selected him to receive this knowledge again and to re-establish the chain of disciplic succession. So when Krishna told that he has selected him to re-establish the chain of disciplic succession, Arjuna got a doubt. Because Krishna and Arjuna were cousins, they both took birth together. So Sun God Vivaswan, he has appeared long ago. He is much older than Krishna. So he wanted to clear the doubt. How could Krishna speak to Sun God, who is being existing in Sun planet much long ago? Here Sun God has appeared. So how Krishna, who has appeared with him recently, how he has spoken to some God? So Arjuna is asking this question. Aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katham etad vijaniyam tvamado proptavaniti. So Arjuna said, the sun god Vivaswan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? So very nice question Arjuna has asked. Arjuna is a devotee and a devotee believes whatever Lord Krishna says. But to clear the doubts of an ordinary man or those who are demoniac who raise many questions against Krishna, on behalf of them, Arjuna put this question and Krishna replies. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Baboni me vyatitani janmani tavacha Arjuna Tanyam Veda Sarvani Natvam Vetha Parantapa. The blessed Lord said, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So Krishna is now replying, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacha Arjuna. O Arjuna, we have passed many births, and Tanyaham Veda Sarvani, I remember all those previous births. What all we did in previous births, I remember. Natvam Veta Parantapa, but you have forgotten? Oh, mighty armed Parantapa, oh subduer of enemy. Even though Arjuna was very strong, he could not remember his past life. But Krishna remembers everything. Why? Because Krishna never changes his body. Krishna is Satchidananda. His body is not like our body. We have this material body and the Atma is trapped within the body. So there are two things, Atma and the body. Body is the dress. Body is like a dress of the Atma. But in Krishna's case, body and the soul of Krishna both are same. There is no difference. So that is, and Krishna never changes the body. Krishna never dies. We all quit this body. Quitting this body is called death. When this body becomes weak, diseased, and due to old age, we have to, when the soul cannot stay any longer in the body, it has to leave this body and enter into another body. That is called death. And when a person leaves his body and enters into another body, he forgets what all happened in the previous body. So that is the law of nature. But Krishna, he never changes his body. Even though he appears to be taking birth as son of Vasudeva and Devaki, as a small child, and he appears to be growing like any other human being, but he never grows older than, say, 25 years. That is Krishna. He never becomes old. He always is Navayavana, always a youth and ever fresh. Because his body is Satchidananda. Our body is material. It undergoes changes from birth to boyhood to youth to old age, and finally the body vanishes. So we are different, Krishna is different. So Arjuna could not remember the past lives. When Krishna instructed the signs to Vivaswan, Arjuna was there, but he has forgotten. So Krishna is reminding Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, we both have passed many lives. I remember all of them, but you have forgotten. So Krishna is giving the explanation. Why is that so? Ajopi sannam vyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim svamadishtaya sambhavamyatma mayaya. So Krishna is telling, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So Krishna is now clearly giving the difference between him and ordinary living beings like Arjuna. So Krishna is telling, Ajopi san, although I am unborn, Aja, we all take birth according to our own karmas of the past lives. We don't choose our parents. It is all pre-decided according to our karmas. And we experience happiness and distress throughout our life. These are all the results of our past karmas. But Krishna is not like that. He is unborn. He never takes birth like us. There is no law of karma on Krishna. Ajaha, Ajopisan, Avyayatma. And his body never deteriorates, because it is Satchidananda, spiritual body. And Bhutanam Ishwaropisan, he is the Lord of all living beings. We are all tiny sparks, tiny parts of God. But Krishna is not tiny part. He is supreme. He is the origin of all living beings. And he appears every millennium. For what he appears? So Krishna says, Yada yada idharmasya glanir bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tada atmanam srijamyam. Krishna appears whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of religion, at that time I descend myself. Krishna says, Yada yada idharmasya glani. When the religious principles deteriorate, and when there is a predominant rise, abhyutthanam adharmasya, when there is a predominant rise of religion, at that time Krishna descends himself to re-establish the religious principles. And then what Krishna does? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Krishna, what he does, in order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I'd advent myself millennium after millennium. So when Krishna appears, he re-establishes the religious principles, and then he delivers the pious devotees who are engaged in practicing bhakti. And that's the aim of human form of life, to get connected to the Supreme, and it's the duty of the kings to give all the facilities to the citizens so that they can establish their connection with the Supreme Lord Krishna and go back to Him. That is the aim of human life. Human form of life is meant for liberation from all these sufferings and re-establishing our connection with the Supreme Lord and return back to the original home from which we all have come here. So we all have to return to the spiritual world where we all have a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. So in order to achieve this, all the Kshatriya kings are responsible to make all the facilities. They have to build temples, they have to conduct festivals, and they have to encourage all the citizens to practice Bhakti Yoga and along with their own duties according to their own nature. One has to be encouraged to practice devotion. So that is the duty of a Kshatriya. Therefore, Krishna taught this science of yoga to the origin of the Kshatriyas, that is the sun god in Surya Vamsha. Surya Vamsha and Chandra Vamsha, there are two Kshatriya dynasties existent in this earth, beginning from the king of suns, sun god, and the king of moon, that is moon god, that is Chandra Vamsha. Lord Rama appeared in Surya Vamsha and Lord Krishna appeared in Chandra Vamsha. So it is the duty of the kings to make all these facilities. So next what happens, we will be understanding in the next section of the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.